Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Stormworks. In this one, we've got something a little bit different planned out. So I've had a few requests to kind of make some building tips and tricks videos, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about just a little bit today. So if there's any specific topics of this you guys would like me to cover, let me know down below. I'll happily kind of talk about those kind of design aspects and whatnot. But real quick, I'm just going to kind of look at a few of the ships that we have, and we're going to talk about some of the design aspects of them. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about right here is kind of following body lines around. So this is an important thing, and it's kind of very subtle, but it will help a lot of your ships look very congruent. So first thing we're going to do is kind of look at this line. So this is a completely separate structure as inside the hull, but you can see that this follows this up, and then it curves back around for the superstructure. And that kind of matching line will help you kind of make the build feel a lot more kind of put together and balanced. So keep in mind that we're going to talk about this a lot in this episode. So kind of just keep that in mind. That is a very useful tip and trick. So try to make sure that your body lines kind of go somewhere. And with that, I'm not sure if this one exactly lines up, but you can see these aren't very parallel, but they kind of give the same aspect. So this and this, they're kind of got the same line going on. To your eye, you're gonna have a very hard time telling that these are two different angles. Now, I will say, generally speaking, you do want to make them the same angle or parallel, but that is just kind of something that you can keep in mind. Going over the next kind of thing is kind of like design language. So a lot of my ships, you'll notice a lot of my ships kind of look very similar, and that's because I do a few things very similar on all of them. And this right here is going to be one of the things I do a lot. So a lot of my superstructures, they have a 1x4 slope in the front that goes up to the bridge, and then I like to do the windows that go out of 45 right off at the top. And this is something that you'll see I do in a lot of my builds. So it's even in the carrier build that we did most recently. Let me just pull the light one out real quick. But we got this 1x4 that goes into a slope of 45 the other way. And while I got this out, we'll kind of talk about some of the body lines on this thing. So going back to what I was saying earlier, if you take these, so this is a clear line on the ship. It's breaking up this wall, and we did that intentionally. I did it to break up this wall. If we follow this all the way back, you'll notice that's exactly where our superstructure starts. And they start at the same angle too. This little 1x2, these are 1x2. So, I mean, if I were to do this really, really well, this would be not there. It would be here. And then this line would be down a little bit. But those are kind of the things you don't really need to worry about as much, as long as you have like congruent lines right here. And another thing, while we're talking about this, I'll talk about is you'll notice like this line right here is parallel. And this line right here is also parallel. And this line even gets continued all the way up. So this is going all the way up to the top of the superstructure. And then we'll kind of look at it from the other side. And you'll notice that this part, the back part, is completely symmetrical. So if I just draw a line right there, you guys will notice that top and bottom, it's completely symmetrical. And when you are designing things, I would say general rule of thumb is try to make a lot of them look symmetrical. You don't need to go for a perfectly symmetrical design. In fact, I'm oftentimes a fan of not doing that, but then you get into issues with the balance of the ship. So a good example of this is my hydrogen ship. So I'll pull this out. Once again, we've got our 1x4 slope going into the superstructure, our 45-degree angles. Kind of helps you tell that it's a ship that I've made. A lot of my ships look like that again. And this is very unsymmetrical, as you can see, but it's balanced. And what I mean by that is we've got a tall, heavy superstructure over here when you look at it, right? So you want something to go on this side of the deck. So I could have put these bulbs. These are where our gases get stored, so our H2O. I could have put these over on this side of the ship, but it would leave this side of the ship very empty, and it would look very unbalanced. So we do still need to fill in the space on both sides. So this is a tank, but you'll notice the tank is very slim in line. It doesn't add a whole lot of weight in the aspect of while you're looking at the ship. The next thing with the ship's balance is we've got a lot going on in the rear here, you can see. So we need to kind of add something to the front. And I'm just gonna quickly, let me cut this out. And you guys will kind of see what I'm talking about. So if I just grab this helipad and say, get rid of it. Looks like we didn't get rid of all of it. 1 second. It looks very, very empty over here, right? And the level of detail isn't super even across the ship, as well as the balance. So again, we've got a lot of stuff going on here. We've got a lifeboat, we've got superstructures, we've got gas tanks, we've got a dock. We need something up here. And I raised it up on purpose, and that is to kind of just even out the overall feel of the ship. So again, this is kind of, it's tricky to kind of notice these kind of things, but they are important, and it does take some time. I think the more you build, the more you kind of get a grasp for it. Good Lord, I can't talk right now. Sorry guys. But yeah, I think that these are kind of important concepts to kind of worry about. And in 1 second, we'll move on to the next boat and kind of talk about more other design aspects. So the next ship that we'll talk about is the submarine. And there's a few weird things about this submarine that I'll talk about, but for the most part, what I want to talk about here is, again, kind of the balance. So in the submarine, we've got this big white bright part in the top, and that kind of makes it seem lighter than this dark spot down here. And since we're kind of talking about this, we'll look at it from the head on. So you'll notice that it kind of tapers down too, and as it tapers down, it gets darker. And the main reason for that is because we want this to kind of seem like it's the big, imagine kind of like a pool floaty, really, with a weight underneath it. And that's because this is a submarine, and not necessarily, this isn't really going to be applicable to like a lot of military submarines because they're completely enclosed, and they've got a lot of other things going on, and form isn't really the main purpose for a military submarine. But in this, that's kind of why we did that. And I want to talk about, again, some of the body lines. So you'll notice if I look at this from the rear, this is the same width as this, and they line up. And following the lines of the rest of the submarine, this tapers in. So you kind of want to make sure that you don't really terminate, like if this was, here, we'll just make this kind of a box real quick. It kind of looks goofy, right? It seems like these corners have nowhere to go. Even if you did something like that, it would help you out a lot. Let me just paint these quick so you can kind of, so if you did something like that, it even helps you out a lot. But one of the things to keep in mind is kind of the shape of the rest of the ship. So we got this big sweeping curve around the top of the hull back here, and we're going to follow that with this light in this line, and it even goes right here too. So it's going to fold back into the ship. And the reason I'm kind of telling you guys this is because a lot of the lines on my ships will terminate, but if you look, they kind of have a place to go. So this could have been another 1x4. We're up one block, my bad. You guys know what I mean. But I didn't like that, and it's kind of because it doesn't give a sense of direction. And the reason I did that was because we have the door back here. You want the back to kind of be more streamlined since it's a submarine. And, you know, with that, we're going to talk about how this is pointed. And so I did an impression over here. And you can kind of see, what am I doing? If I just do that, you know, that works, but it's kind of boring. And I think that you can kind of add a little bit of a line in here, and that helps kind of break it up and kind of add a little bit more detail and shaping to the ship. Going off of the kind of balance conversation too. So another thing you'll notice is we've got this big kind of weird thing, our radar. It's not a weird thing, it's just a radar. But if I get rid of this window here, it kind of means that, or it kind of looks like the ship is a little too plain. So if we just, I know I'm messing it all up, but if we just do that, you can kind of see that it seems like this is way too high, and if you follow any lines, it doesn't really go anywhere. So we're going to pull this back out, and I added a rope. And that's going to help a lot with that kind of, this is higher and out of place than everything else. So you can kind of see the rope kind of gives a nice little slope there, kind of makes it a little bit more reasonable that the radar is kind of sticking up out of nowhere. It makes it make a little bit more sense. So that's just a quick little kind of tip you can do. I added this window to kind of help create that kind of imaginary line in your eyes. And these are kind of the simple little weird things that I'm talking about when I make a lot of ships. So I know it's kind of going to be really weird what a lot of this that I'm talking about is, but I promise it'll help. Let me pull out the carrier, and the last thing I kind of want to talk about is kind of like interior spaces, because this is something that typically I notice a lot of people do struggle with, and this is something that I actually really enjoy. So one thing that we want to kind of establish first before we start working on an interior is, what is the interior for? And with that, I would say, kind of get a list of rooms you want to get in, and that kind of more is centralized around what is the ship for. Like in this case, this is a military ship, so we need a lot of bunk rooms, we need a medical facility, we need an armory, and I mean, most ships you're going to have some sort of mess hall, so that's pretty standard. Obviously a lot of our space is dedicated to hangar, but that is, again, part of the nature of the aircraft carrier. The next steps in doing your interior, what I would say is, get your stairwells down. And the stairwells can move around a lot. Don't worry about that. They might be in a weird spot. Like the stairs in this thing are very weird. Look, you got to go all the way around to go down and up here. And I have two stairwells right next to each other. And it's all over the place. But that's kind of the point, if I'm being honest. This is a military ship, so it's very cramped. There's a lot going on. You got to make use of every little space. And you'll notice that this hallway right here is a lot larger than the rest of the hallway. And that's because this is going to be, it's right next to the cargo lift in the engine room and the workshop. So you need a lot of extra space for kind of cargo handling. Other than that, you want to kind of cram it tight. And that is just because it is a military ship. Now, if this was a yacht, you'd want to make it a lot bigger. And the hallways, you wouldn't want to have them 3 wide. And the stairwells should be wider. And a lot of that kind of stuff. And that's just because, that is more built for luxury, enjoying yourself, that kind of thing. But what I would generally say is kind of try to plan out the logistics of the ship. And I know that's not really a thing in Stormworks, but try to plan out where your storage is going to be, where a lot of your lifts are going to be, where your stairs are going to be, where a lot of your plumbing is going to go, and go from there. That would be my best advice. And then just cram things everywhere you can. That's going to kind of help a lot, especially with military ships. But yeah, I think that these are kind of some basic tips and tricks that you guys can use. And I hope that this video was some way helpful. And that's just about all I have for you guys today. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. If you do want me to kind of talk about anything in the future, let me know. That's all I got for this one. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.